The red sun of Kepler 4 crawled along the horizon like a dying coal, painting the plains in rust and shadow. Elias Mercer wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his glove and leaned on the handle of his soil cutter. The machine hummed softly, its vibration steady, familiar. Comforting. 20-2 rows planted before dusk. That was the plan. He glanced up at the sky, instinct more than habit. Empty. No patrol craft, no merchant flares, no alien sky serpents drifting on thermal currents, just the pale, violet-tinged clouds and the long scar of the ring, a shattered megastructure left by a civilization no one remembered anymore. Good. Khepri-IV was technically inside the neutral fringe, claimed by 3 alien polities and none of them willing to bleed for it. Humans had learned early that neutral meant forgotten, which was exactly why Elias had come. 5 years ago he finished the row, powered down the cutter, and listened. Wind hissed through razor. Somewhere far off, a burrowing grazer thumped underground. His homestead dome squatted 100 meters away, dull steel and polymer half buried against storms. No voices, no alarms. That was life now. Elias walked back, boots crunching on iron-rich soil. The air smelled metallic, like wet pennies and ozone. He keyed the dome open, stepped inside, and sealed it behind him. Warmth, filtered air, the faint smell of yeast and cooked grain. He liked routines. They kept the memories quiet. The galactic news feeds were old recordings, cached years ago, human colonies burning on the edgeworlds, treaties breaking like glass, aliens arguing over whether humanity was dangerous, useful, or expendable. Elias had stopped watching after the fall of New Thessaly. He had stayed when most humans pulled back. Someone had to prove they didn't run forever. The dome lights dimmed automatically as the sun dipped lower. Elias shrugged off his jacket, poured himself recycled water, and sat at the narrow table. Tomorrow he'd harvest the western plot, maybe repair the perimeter sensors, maybe not. Then the alert chimed. Not the weather ping, not a system fault, perimeter breach. Elias froze. That hadn't happened in 3 years. He stood slowly, heart thudding, and pulled the rifle from its war mount. Old Terran steel, nothing fancy. He trusted it more than any alien tech. The external cameras flickered onto the main screen. At first, he thought it was an animal. Something small lay collapsed against the outer airlock, pale, shaking. Then it moved, and he saw limbs. Too many joints, too slender, skin like pearl under the dying light, and no clothes. Elias swore under his breath and zoomed the image. It was unmistakably alien, humanoid shape, but the proportions were wrong. Long legs folded awkwardly beneath her, smooth skin traced with faint, bioluminescent lines pulsing weakly blue along her ribs and throat. Her hair or crest was dark and matted, plastered to her head by rain or sweat. She lifted her face toward the camera. Her eyes were too large, iridescent, and full of terror. A sound came through the exterior mic, not a growl, not a threat call. Crying. High. Broken sobs that cut through the dome's walls and went straight into Elias's chest. He hesitated. Every survival instinct screamed trap. Slavers used bait species. Pirates wore skins. Aliens had started wars over misunderstandings smaller than this. Then she weakly raised one trembling hand and knocked on the airlock. 3 soft taps. She collapsed again, curling in on herself, shoulders shaking as the red sun vanished completely. Elias lowered the rifle an inch. Damn it, he muttered. He keyed the intercom, voice rough from disuse. Hey, can you understand me? The crying paused. Her head lifted. Her mouth opened and she spoke. The translator lagged, then spat out a fractured phrase. Please, don't let them take me back. Elias stared at the screen. Behind her, at the very edge of sensor range, something large moved in the darkness, metallic, silent, and hunting. The perimeter alert screamed again. Multiple contacts. Inbound. Elias's finger hovered over the airlock controls. If he opened the door, everything would change. He pressed the button. The lock began to cycle.
The airlock hissed as pressure equalized, fog spilling outward into the cooling night. Elias stood just inside the inner seal, rifle shouldered but lowered, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. He'd already broken every rule he'd set for himself out here. Don't get involved. Don't be seen. Don't invite the galaxy to notice you. The outer door slid open. She collapsed inward, half falling, half crawling across the threshold before Elias could react. Her skin was ice-cold to the touch when he caught her under the arms, lighter than she looked, trembling violently. The bioluminescent lines along her body flared brighter as soon as she crossed into the dome, pulsing like a panicked heartbeat. Easy, Elias said, more to himself than her. You're inside. You're safe. For now, her head snapped up. Those huge eyes locked onto his face, pupils dilating. She spoke rapidly, the sounds liquid and sharp, completely alien. The translator implant in Elias's ear struggled, then began assembling meaning. They are close. Please, human Sillet. Elias didn't hesitate. He dragged her fully inside and slammed the control. The outer door sealed just as something hit it. The dome shuddered. A deep, resonant clang rolled through the metal, followed by another. Not random, deliberate. Elias swore and hauled her farther in, positioning himself between her and the airlock. He brought up the external feed on his wrist console. 3 figures stood, outside tall, armored. Their bodies were encased in segmented exosuits that bent the wrong way at the joints, insectal and predatory. Their helmets were smooth ovals with vertical slits glowing a sickly green. Each carried a weapon that hummed with contained energy, barrels shifting shape as they charged. Slavers. Elias recognized them, immediately Krath enforcers. Everyone in the fringe knew the stories. They didn't conquer worlds. They harvested species, especially ones that glowed. One of them leaned forward, its helmet nearly touching the airlock. The external speaker crackled. Human occupant, a distorted voice rasped. You are in possession of stolen property. Surrender the Verethi female, and no harm will come to you. The woman behind Elias made a choked sound and clutched the back of his shirt with surprising strength. Don't, she whispered. They will kill you. Elias felt something old and dangerous uncoiled in his chest. He toggled the mic. You're trespassing on my land. A pause, then a sound that might have been laughter. Your species has no claim here, the enforcer replied. This world is unregistered. You are irrelevant. Elias smiled thinly. That's funny, he said, because you're standing inside my perimeter, threatening me in my own home. He didn't mention the automated turrets buried under the soil, or the fact that human ballistics didn't show up on most alien threat predictors. The enforcer raised its weapon. Elias fired. The rifle kicked hard against his shoulder. The thunderclap, deafening inside the dome. The slug punched through the airlock's outer plating. At a pre-weakened Semelius had reinforced it to fail outward. The round tore through the enforcer's chest plate and detonated inside. A brutal human solution to an alien problem. The body slammed backward, armor collapsing inward like crushed foil. The other two reacted instantly, weapons screaming as they discharged. Energy splashed against the dome's shields, lighting the interior blue-white. Elias grabbed the woman and dragged her down behind the central support pillar as alarms wailed. Stay down, he shouted. I didn't mean for this, she cried, voice breaking. They followed me. They always follow. Another impact rocked the dome. Cracks spiderwebbed across the outer layer. Elias reloaded. Jaw clenched. Well, he muttered, eyes hard. They picked the wrong farm. Outside. The enforcers repositioned, coordinating, adapting. Inside. The woman looked at Elias with a mixture of awe and horror. You fight, she said softly, like the stories said humans did. Elias glanced at her glowing skin, then back at the cracking dome. Yeah, he said, and I'm outnumbered. The shield integrity dropped another 10%. The enforcers began charging something big. Elias realized this wasn't a raid, it was an extraction and they were willing to level his home to get her. The dome shook again, harder this time. A shrill warning cut through the air as structural integrity dipped into the red. Dust drifted from the ceiling seams. Elias tasted metal and burned insulation. He didn't have long. Can you move? He asked, already pulling the woman toward the rear corridor. She nodded too quickly, fear making her movements jerky. Yes, I will try. Try faster. Another blast slammed into the shields. The lights flickered. Elias cursed and keyed open a hidden panel in the floor. A narrow stairwell spiraled down into the bedrock. The woman froze at the opening. Bioluminescent lines along her neck, flaring bright turquoise. Below ground. Storm shelter, Elias said, and something else. He shoved her gently but firmly down the steps and followed, sealing the hatch just as something screamed outside, a rising, mechanical wail that made his teeth ache. The underground chamber was crude but solid. bare stone walls reinforced with human alloy plates, racks of supplies, a small generator humming steadily, and, against one wall, a compact weapons console that definitely wasn't agricultural equipment. Elias slid the rifle onto the rack and turned to face her. Up close, she was even more alien. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight on water. The glowing lines traced complex patterns converging at her sternum where they pulsed brightest. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering, eyes never leaving him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Elias broke the silence. "Name." She blinked. "You ask names first. Always." Another distant explosion thudded overhead. Dust rained down. She swallowed. "I am Serix Aval, but Serix is enough." Elias nodded. "Elias Mercer. This is my home. You brought trouble to it." "I know." Her voice cracked. "I ran because I did not want to be owned." Owned. The word landed heavy. Elias asked, more gently than he expected. She hesitated, then straightened, as if bracing for a blow. "Viorethi, we are valued. Our bodies produce leech-reactive enzymes. Healing, energy, amplification, beauty." Her lips twisted bitterly. "We are not allowed to choose where we live." Elias felt his jaw tighten. He'd heard of species like that. Entire civilizations reduced to commodities by stronger empires. Humanity had come close to the same fate more than once. The ceiling groaned. "They'll breach the dome," Elias said. "When they do, they'll sweep for life signs. This bunker masks most signals, but not forever." Serix looked at him sharply. "Then you must let me go." Elias laughed, short and humorless. "Not happening. You will die," she insisted. "Humans are strong, but they are many." Elias stepped to the console and activated the holomap. The terrain around his farm lit up, revealing buried shapes, old scars in the earth. "You see those?" he said. "Human traps. Kinetic mines, EMP nets, things the craft never bothered to adapt to because we're irrelevant." Her eyes widened. "You planned for war," she said. "I planned for survival." Sudden crack echoed above them, the unmistakable sound of metal. Tearing the dome was breached. Elias felt the vibration through his boots as the enforcers dropped inside his home. He imagined them fanning out, weapons humming, scanning for the glowing prize they'd come for. The light along her ribs pulsed erratically. "They will sense me," she whispered. "My fear makes it worse." "Then stop being afraid," Elias said. She stared at him. "How?" He met her gaze, eyes steady. "By trusting me." The enforcers' voices echoed faintly through the rock-harsh, clicking commands. Elias keyed the first trap, the ground above them, detonated. The bunker shook violently as a thunderous roar tore through the farm. On the holomap, one of the enemy markers vanished. Elias grinned grimly. "That's one." Serix stared at the display, then at him. "You are not like the stories," she said. "You are worse." "Yeah," Elias replied, loading another magazine. "We get that a lot." Then the map lit up with new contacts more than before. A dropship signature descending fast. Serix's face drained of color. "They called reinforcements," she said. "A collector." Elias felt a chill. Collectors didn't negotiate. They raised. He looked at the woman glowing softly in his bunker and realized something terrible and unavoidable. Keeping her meant fighting an interstellar power. Letting her go meant handing her back to slavery. Outside, engines screamed as the dropship broke atmosphere. Elias locked the bunker door and armed everything he had. The dropship's engines howled overhead, a sound like tearing metal dragged across the sky. Even underground, Elias felt it in his bones. The holomap bloomed with threat markers as the craft settled into a hover above what remained of his dome. A collector. Elias had never seen one in person. No human had and lived to brag about it. They weren't soldiers, they were accountants of flesh. Entire wars had ended when a collector arrived, not because it fought, but because resistance became unprofitable. Serix sank to her knees. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They never stop." Elias knelt in front of her, gripping her shoulders. "Look at me," she did, reluctantly. Her eyes glowed faintly now, reflecting his console light. "Is there anything you haven't told me?" he asked. She flinched. That was answer enough. Another distant impact shook the bunker. The enforcers were tearing apart what little remained of his home, piece by piece. Sarek's voice was barely audible. I did not escape alone. Elias's stomach tightened. Explain, I was chosen, she said. Among my people, a few of us developed more concentrated light cores, stronger, rarer. Her hand pressed against her chest, where the glow was brightest. Collectors prize us above all. So you're bait, Elias said flatly. Yes. The word hung between them like a blade. I ran, she continued, faster now, panic leaking through, but the others helped me. They hid my trail, slowed them. If the collector fails here, it will not just punish MIT, will annihilate my enclave. Thousands. Elias stood slowly. You knew they'd come in force, he said. You knew this place would become a battlefield. I hoped, she broke off, shame flooding her features. I hoped humans were only stories, exaggerations I did not expect. You, Elias, turned away, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. The old anger was back, the kind he thought he'd buried under soil and routine. They always hoped someone else would pay the price. Outside, the collector deployed ground units, sleek, spider-like constructs that moved with terrifying precision. They ignored the mines, adapted instantly. Human traps were no longer surprising. Elias Sarek said softly, if you give me to them, they will leave. They always honor the transaction. He laughed, sharp and bitter. You really believe that? They will, she insisted. Your world is not worth their time. Elias turned back, eyes blazing. This isn't my world, it's my home. The bunker lights flickered. Sarek rose unsteadily. The glow along her body intensified, flooding the chamber with blue-white light. There is something else, she said. Something dangerous. Now you tell me, Elias muttered. She closed her eyes. The light flared, brighter still, humming with energy that made his skin prickle. My people are not only resources, she said. We are conduits. When pushed far enough, our light can interface with foreign technology. Override it. Burn it out. Elias stared. You're a walking EMP. More, she said quietly. But it kills us. The collector's voice suddenly boomed through the bunker speakers, overriding Elias's systems with obscene ease. Verethius et Sarek's a villain misdied. It intoned calm and absolute. You are required. Present yourself. The human may live. Sarek opened her eyes. They were blazing now, tears of light spilling down her cheeks. You see, she said. This ends if I go. Elias felt something snap inside him, not rage this time, but resolve. The quiet, terrible kind that humans had built entire legends on. He stepped past her and began reconfiguring the weapons console. No, he said. It doesn't. The collector's tone shifted. Human, you are irrational. Yeah, Elias replied, rooting power from the generator. That's our edge. Sarek grabbed his arm. If I release the light here underground, it will kill us both. Then don't do it here. He pulled up a schematic of the collector ship, data scavenged years ago from a half-dead probe. Power nodes, control cores. A single vulnerable moment during descent recalibration. Elias looked at her. Can you reach that? She followed his gaze, realization dawning in horror. I would need to be close, she said. Inside the ship, Elias smiled grimly. Good, he said. Because I was planning to board it. The collector paused. For the first time in recorded history, it hesitated. Outside. The ship's ramp began to lower either to retrieve its asset, or to eliminate the problem personally. Elias chambered around. Suit up, he said. We're going to teach the galaxy something it forgot. Sarek's light surged, brighter than ever, and above them, the collector descended. The night split open as the collector descended. Its hull unfolded like a predatory flower, layers of black alloy rotating and locking into place with precise inevitability. Gravity bent around it. Sensors screamed. Elias felt the pressure in his skull. Like the world itself, protesting the thing's presence, they emerged from the bunker. Into chaos. What remained of Elias's farm, burned and scattered fragments, twisted metal, ruptured hydro tanks, venting vapor into the air. Enforcer bodies lay broken across the red soil. But more spider constructs crawled between the wreckage, methodical, tireless. Syrinx staggered beside him. Wrapped in an emergency cloak, Ilias had forced around her. The glow beneath it pulsed erratically now, too bright to fully hide. "Focus on me," Elias said, gripping her hand. "Don't let it spike yet." "I am trying," she whispered. "The ship is calling." The collector's ramp slammed into the earth. It emerged, not a single being, but a towering assemblage of articulated limbs and hovering core masses suspended by gravitic fields. No face, no eyes, just rotating sensory arrays and a central prism burning with cold. White intelligence. Its voice came from everywhere. "Human Elias Mercer," it said. "Your resistance has exceeded projected value. This will be corrected." The spider constructs surged forward. Elias opened fire. Human slugs tore through the first wave. Kinetic force smashing delicate internal components the alien machines hadn't armored against. Elias moved like he'd been waiting for this moment for years, rolling, firing, advancing with brutal efficiency. HFY wasn't about being stronger, it was about refusing to stop. Syrinx screamed as a beam lanced past Elias and struck her shoulder. The cloak vaporized. She collapsed, light flaring violently from the wound. Elias shouted, dragging her behind a chunk of debris as the air filled with burning ozone. The collector advanced unhurried, asset integrity declining, it observed. Acceptable losses. Syrinx convulsed, hands clutching her chest. The glowing lines along her body burned white-hot now, no longer contained. Elias could feel heat radiating off her. "I can't hold it," she gasped. "Iliasai can't." A spider construct leaped. Iliasai intercepted it mid-air, firing point blank. The explosion threw him backward. He hit the ground hard, vision swimming. When he forced himself up, the collector was there. One massive limb pinned him to the soil. The weight crushed the air from his lungs. His rifle skittered away, useless. "You are obsolete," the collector said. "Your species persists only because extermination costs outweigh benefits." It extended a smaller appendage toward Syrinx, asset retrieval commencing. Elias rasped. Syrinx looked at him through blinding light and tears. "I am sorry," she said. "I never wanted this." She made her choice. The light erupted, not outward downward. Syrinx forced the energy back into herself, compressing it, screaming, as the glow dimmed to a lethal intensity. The spider constructs around her froze, systems overloaded, then collapsed like puppets with cut strings. The collector reeled, its outer arrays flickering, but it adapted. Gravitic fields surged. A containment lattice snapped into place around Syrinx, slamming her to the ground, crushing the light back down. The glow vanished, so did her scream. Elias felt the limb lift from his chest as the collector turned away from him victorious, asset secured. It declared, "Human neutralization optional." Syrinx lay motionless, eyes dull, skin no longer glowing. "No," Elias whispered. Something inside him broke completely. He staggered to his feet as the collector dragged Syrinx toward the ramp, her body limp, her light gone. The farm, the traps, the fight, all of it for nothing. The galaxy didn't change for lone humans, it crushed them. The collector's ramp began to rise. Elias dropped to one knee in the red soil, blood and dust streaking his face. Then his wrist console chimed. A signal in ancient, human. Long dash forgotten. Emergency beacon acknowledged. Origin, Terran Black Vault Network. Elias stared at the message, heart slamming. He'd triggered it years ago by accident, or so he thought. Above him, the collector ship began ascent. The beacon pulsed again. Response incoming. ETA. Unknown. Elias looked up at the departing ship, eyes burning with something far more dangerous than hope. "Hold on, Syrinx," he growled. "This isn't over." The collector ship lifted free of the ground, its gravitic wake flattening the razor grass for kilometers. The red soil rippled like liquid beneath Ilias's boots. He shielded his eyes, tracking the ascending silhouette as it angled toward high orbit. Too far gone. Elias stood alone in the wreckage of his life, the night suddenly quiet in the aftermath of devastation. Smoke drifted. Fires crackled. The stars looked cold and indifferent. Then his wrist console pulsed again. Terran Black, Vault Network, secure channel open day voice followed human, calm, and very much not supposed to exist out here. Elias Mercer. Confirm identity. His breath caught. He hadn't heard another human voice in 5 years. Not live, not real. "Mercer," he said hoarsely. "Colony ID Thetared 19, civilian." A pause. Data raced across his display: biometrics, neural patterns, genetic markers. "Confirmed," the voice said. "You activated a vault beacon 912 days ago. We assumed you were dead." Elias laughed weakly. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Another pause, longer this time. "Collector class entity detected," the voice continued. "You engaged it alone." "I didn't win," Elias said, staring at the scorched ground where Syrinx had fallen. They took her silence. "Then that changes the parameters." The stars above shifted. At first, Elias thought it was his vision blurring from blood loss. Then the sky rippled, like heat haze magnified 1,000 times. A patch of darkness peeled itself away from reality, revealing something vast and angular beneath. A ship, not sleek, not elegant, built with brutal purpose and layered redundancies. Human design, unmistakable and unapologetic. It had been there the whole time, hidden, cloaked, so perfectly that even a collector hadn't noticed. The voice spoke again, now carrying a faint edge of something Elias recognized all too well. Anger. "You have just provided us with proof." The ship decloaked fully, blotting out stars as weapon ports irised open along its hull. "Proof," the voice continued, "that the collectors have crossed the line." Elias sank to one knee, equal parts exhaustion and awe crashing through him. "You came," he whispered. "We never left," the voice corrected. "We withdrew. We watched. We waited." The ship's designation flashed across his console. TBS Perseverance Terran Black Vault, asset denied. Existence, eh? One of the myths? One of the things humanity pretended it didn't have so the galaxy would underestimate them. What now? Ilias asked. The answer came not as words, but as motion. The Perseverance accelerated, not toward Kepler-4's surface but straight up, chasing the collector's ship on an intercept vector that bent physics until Elias felt sick watching it. "We recover the Verithy," the voice said, "or we burn the collectors out of the sky." Ilias forced himself to stand. "She's alive," he said fiercely. "I know she is." "Confirmed," the voice replied. "Barely. Containment protocols indicate active suppression of a high-energy biological interface." Elias clenched his fists. "Then you better hurry." "We will," the voice said. "But understand this, Elias Mercer." The stars stretched as the Perseverance vanished into jump space, leaving only scorched clouds behind. "You didn't just save one alien today." The voice softened just a fraction. "You reminded humanity why it hid its teeth." Elias stared at the empty sky, heart pounding with renewed purpose. Somewhere out there, Syrinx was imprisoned aboard a monster ship, her light crushed but not extinguished, and humanity was coming, not as farmers, not as refugees, but as something the galaxy had hoped was extinct. Ilias picked up his rifle from the dirt, checked the chamber, and smiled grimly. "Hang on," he whispered to the stars. "We're on our way." The inside of the collector's ship was wrong, not dark absent. Light bent strangely along faceted corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves when no one looked directly at them. Syrinx floated in the center of a containment lattice, limbs spread by gravitic clamps, her body wrapped in translucent force. The bioluminescent lines beneath her skin were dim now, flickering like a dying star. She could feel the ship thinking, every pulse of energy, every shift in gravity, pressed against her mind, probing, measuring. The collector didn't see pain or fear, only yield curves and efficiency margins. "Extraction phase 97% complete," it intoned, voice echoing through the chamber. "Your resistance will diminish to 0. Syrinx tried to scream. No sound came out. Then the ship shuddered. Not a weapon strike. Something far worse. Reality punched the collector. Warning sigils flared across the chamber. As alarms screamed in a dozen alien spectrums, the containment lattice flickered, momentarily unstable. The collector reacted instantly. External interference detected. Probability of human involvement non-zero. Outside, space tore open. The TBS Perseverance tore free of jump space like a blade drawn from flesh. Its arrival wasn't elegant, it's violent. Shock waves rippled through vacuum as human weapons locked and fired in the same instant. No warnings, no demands, kinetic lances rods of depleted uranium. Accelerated to obscene fractions of light speeds, not energy, not something shields could deflect. Matter met matter, the collector's outer layers. Peeled away in sheets of molten alloy. Inside, Sarex felt the ship scream. The containment field destabilized again. Her light responded instinctively, flaring brighter as the alien systems faltered. "No," the collector intoned, voice fractured. "Human aggression exceeds predicted limits." That was when Elias arrived. He came through the breach riding a boarding torpedo. Human steel wrapped around him like a coffin. The impact hurled him across the chamber. He rolled, came up firing, and didn't stop. Human bullets tore into collector constructs, shredding delicate internals. Sparks and alien fluids sprayed the air. He shouted. Her eyes snapped open. She saw him bloodied, furious. Realand, something inside her reignited. "Elias," she whispered. He reached her just as the containment lattice began to reassert itself. He slammed a charge onto the field emitter. "Do it," he said. "Now I will die," she said, voice steady for the first time. "Then I'll make damn sure it matters." The charge detonated. The lattice collapsed. Sarex fell and Elias caught her for a heartbeat. Everything was still. Then she let the light go, not in panic, not in desperation, in choice. The bioluminescence exploded outward, flooding the chamber with radiance so intense it overwhelmed the collector's sensors. Human tech endured it, shielded, redundant, stubborn. Alien systems did not. The collector screamed it not in pain, but in lost. Control collapsed. Gravity failed. The ship began to tear itself apart from the inside. "Impossible," it rasped. "You are a resource." "No," Sarex said, voice carrying through the blazing light. "I am free." The Perseverance opened fire again. One final kinetic strike punched through the collector's core. The ship imploded, folding in on itself, crushed by its own failed gravitic fields, collapsing into a newborn singularity that vanished a moment later. Silence followed. Elias floated in vacuum, magboots clamped to debris, arms wrapped around Sarex's glowing form as the Perseverance's recovery field swept them up in the hangar bay. Medics rushed forward, human and alien alike. Sarex's light dimmed but did not go out. She was alive. Elias sagged with relief, forehead resting against hers. "We did it," he breathed. She smiled weakly. "No, you did." The captain's voice echoed through the bay. "Collector eliminated." Signal burst, transmitted across fringe space. Elias looked up. "Signal?" "Yes," the captain said. "We wanted them to see." Sarex's eyes widened. "See what?" Elias smiled, tired and fierce, that humans don't abandon their own. The hangar lights dimmed as the ship prepared to jump. Somewhere across the galaxy, empires were receiving a message they would never forget. Humanity had chosen the light, and it was coming to be continued. Part 8. What grows after fire? The red sun of Kepri IV rose again. Elias hadn't expected that. After everything after fire from the sky and alien blood in the soil, he'd half believed the planet would stay dark out of spite. But dawn came anyway, thin and coppery, spilling across the plains like a second chance no one had earned. The Perseverance hung in the upper atmosphere, invisible once more, a silent guardian. Its work was done for now. Elias stood where his dome used to be, boots planted in scorched earth. Automated drones hummed around him, rebuilding with quiet efficiency. New supports rose from the ground, stronger than before, not hidden, not ashamed. SerYX stood beside him. She wore clothing now simple human, fabric adapted to her frame, but the faint bioluminescent lines beneath her skin still glowed softly in the morning light. Not the blazing weapon she'd unleashed aboard the collector's ship. Something gentler. "Alive. You stayed," she said, watching the workers. "Someone's got to finish the harvest," Elias replied. She smiled, then grew serious. "The galaxy is changing because of what you did." "Good," Elias said. It needed changing. News had spread fast, faster than even the Black Vault expected. The destruction of a collector proof of its vulnerability had ripped through trade routes and shadow networks alike. Slaver fleets were pulling back, contracts dissolving overnight, empires recalculating risk models that suddenly had a new variable. Humans who no longer hid, The Varathi enclave still lived. The Perseverance had found them burned, scattered, but alive. For the first time in their history, they were negotiating not as property, but as a people with allies who had teeth. Syrinx turned toward Elias, eyes bright. "My people want me to return, to help lead them." He nodded, already expecting it. "You should. And yet," she said quietly, "I chose to come back here first." He met her gaze. "Why? Because you did not save me because of what I am," she said. "You saved me because I knocked on your door." Elias looked out across the fields, half destroyed, red soil waiting patiently for human hands. "I was tired of being alone," he admitted. They stood in companionable silence as the wind moved. Through the razor grass, dotted distant thunder, rolled not a storm, but engines. A small shuttle descended, Terran markings bright and unapologetic. Diplomats this time, envoys, builders, not soldiers. Humanity was coming back to the fringe, not to conquer, to plant. Syrinx reached down, scooped a handful of soil, and let it trickle through her fingers. The bioluminescent lines along her skin pulsed faintly in rhythm with the world beneath her feet. Life grows in strange places, she said. Elias smiled. "Yeah, it does." The shuttle touched down. New voices, new choices, a future that would be loud, complicated, and shared as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the land. Elias felt something he hadn't in years, not peace, purpose. He turned to Syrinx and gestured toward the fields. "So," he said, "ever worked a farm?" She laughed, a sound like light refracting through crystal. "No," she said, "but I learned quickly." Together they walked forward into the red dawn and far beyond Kepri, across stations and worlds and empires that had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant. A single truth took root. If you knock on a human door, you'd better be ready for what answers. The red sun of Keprafor rose again. Elias hadn't expected that. After everything, after fire falling from orbit and alien blood soaking into iron soil, he'd half believed the planet might refuse dawn out of spite. But the light came anyway, thin and copper-colored, spilling across the plains like a mercy no one had earned. The TBS Perseverance lingered high above. Invisible once more, a predator returned to shadow. Humanity's teeth were hidden again, but now the galaxy knew they were there. Elias stood where his dome used to be, boots planted in scorched earth. Reconstruction drones hummed around him, extruding alloy supports, repressurizing soil domes, sealing cracks. This time there were no concealment fields, no attempt to look harmless. This farm would stand openly. Stood beside him, she wore clothing now human, fabric adapted to her frame, but the faint bioluminescent tracery beneath her skin still glowed softly, like embers instead of wildfire. The light no longer screamed. It breathed. "You could leave," she said quietly. "They would give you passage, protection, a place among them." Elias snorted. "I already have a place." She followed his gaze across the fields, half destroyed, half replanted. Razor grass trimmed back, soil turned, and waiting that the galaxy had offered him noise. He chose roots. News traveled faster than fleets. The destruction of a collector had detonated across the fringe in panic and disbelief. Slaver markets froze. Contracts evaporated overnight. Species once listed as assets vanished from ledgers and reappeared as political risks. The Varathi enclave still lived, scarred, displaced, but alive. Human warships no empire had ever officially seen now escorted their refugee caravans, not as masters, not as owners, as witnesses. Syrinx turned toward Elias, her eyes reflecting the rising sun. "My people want me to help lead them. To teach them what I learned." He nodded. "You should." She hesitated. "And yet, I came back here first." "Why?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Because you didn't save me for what I am. You saved me because I was afraid, and you opened the door." Elias looked down at his hand, scarred, calloused, stained with soil and blood. "That's kind of our thing." A distant rumble echoed across the plains. A small shuttle descended, Terran markings clear and unapologetic. Not soldiers this time. Diplomats, engineers, farmers, humanity was returning to the fringe, not to conquer, to stay. Syrinx crouched, scooped up a handful of red soil, and let it spill slowly through her fingers. The bioluminescent lines along her skin pulsed faintly. synchronizing with the planet beneath her feet. "Life grows in strange places," she said. Elias smiled. "Especially where people try to burn it out." The shuttle touched down. New voices carried on the wind. New arguments. New hopes. A future that would be loud, messy, and shared. Elias gestured toward the fields. "So," he said, "ever worked a farm?" Sarex laughed clear, bright, unafraid. "No," she said, "but I survived the collectors. I think I can handle dirt." They walked forward together into the red morning dot, far beyond Keprifor. Across stations and empires that once dismissed humanity as weak, irrelevant, or obsolete, a lesson took root. Humans might withdraw, they might endure, they might hide their strength, but if you came to them crying, if you knocked on their door, you'd better be ready for what answered.